The curious thing about this is that if you do the math on this, right, and you say, okay, like this is how much aberration is happening, then maybe the stars are moving at 30 kilometers a second or whatever. But then you have to assume like a bunch of other things, and it also wouldn't work with the distances they say the stars are at. So you'd have to scale everything down and make everything much closer. And it just wouldn't work. You'd have to shift the entire geometric. Like it would work for the apparent. It would work for the kinematics totally, but you would end up having like some crazy orbital velocities for the universe, rotational. The tangential velocity of the stars at their distance from Earth, if you presume the distances are correct at like 100 million light years or whatever, would be like a retarded number because they make that orbit in one day, right? So they'd be spanning a circle of radius 100 million light years and going around that entire circumference in 24 hours.
Oh, right, yeah. So the geocentric globe is out.
Unless you're willing to just completely abandon relativity in its totality and say that stuff can move at like a billion times faster than light, but it just, it seems kind of impractical for most people to swallow that. I also believe relativity is wrong. We can talk about that if you want, but this Michelson-Morley paper, it's important to talk about Aries in its context because it's actually introduced on the first page, and they make some really like important like not claims but like explanations of what happened. So
I've got another problem though, like the Michelson-Morley with the Sagnac effect. The claimed reference frame is a choice, an arbitrary choice, because you don't have an actual velocity measurement from studying the phase shift of the light when it's recombined on the sensor.
That's actually a common misconception. So that's how they tricked everyone. There was a significant reading, and they rounded it down to a 0 because it didn't fit within the model, and that's why I'm trying to.
I'm acknowledging that there was a phase shift, but what I'm saying is that itself is not inherent to any velocity measurement, whether direction or rotation of any given magnitude.
Okay, so are you familiar with the Sagnac effect in 1913 when he?
That's what I'm referencing. Yeah.
So we know that because
the problem is they chose the star field as a reference frame when they could have chosen the moon as a reference frame and got a different velocity calculation. They could have chosen the sun as a different reference frame and got a different velocity calculation. So the reference frame that they assigned was a philosophical choice too. Just like the Globers who say that the Earth as a reference frame was a philosophical choice. You don't actually have a velocity measurement at all with Sagnac, the Michelson-Morley demonstration.
All right, I found the paper. Sorry, I had to grab it because I couldn't find it in my folder quick enough. So I'm going to change my screen share to this paper.
I mean, is what I'm saying holding any merit with you or not?
Yeah, so let me pull the paper up, and I want to get it in front of me, and then I'm going to address what you just. So
okay.
Sorry, it's in the wrong window. I have to restart the stream. There we go. Okay.
The point of me pushing back is just to provide some critical analysis for the audience.
Yeah, so the Sagnac effect is we know based on what was happened in 1913, 1914 and onwards from George S. Sagnac that we can definitely use the differential in light arrival times or light propagation times in a moving object to derive a velocity, because he showed that the phase shift was directly proportional to the velocity with which a table was spinning. What Michelson-Morley did is they said, well, this is linear motion, and it's this second order effect, and Einstein was like, yeah, so relativity is a second order effect, and it just happens to length contract the apparatus at the same exact amount that it would need to in order to cause a differential phase shift, and so the length contraction perfectly cancels out with the phase shift and makes it a big fat zero. That's what they went with. So in their explanation, it wouldn't work. Now, like you referenced the Sagnac effect, which is demonstrated later, we know it would work. So what's the conclusion, right? Like, what's your position on this?
My position is you don't have a velocity measurement at all unless you arbitrarily assign a reference frame to calibrate the phase shift itself.
My position,
okay.
Yeah.
What
was Einstein's proof?
So when you say calibrate the phase shift, what they did is they just took one measurement and then they rotated the degrees 90 degrees and took another measurement. So they had the arm like the forward arm along the direction of Earth's velocity, and then when they rotated at 90 degrees, they had it opposite the direction of Earth's velocity. So it doesn't really matter whether you zero it out at the beginning or what. You're just taking the difference between those two. Because there should be like a relative difference between moving forward and moving back, because in one side the mirror is getting closer and on the other side the mirror is getting further away. So the path is longer one way and shorter the other. And that's how they did it. They had this thing on a giant mercury bed. They had like this giant concrete tank, or like imagine a giant concrete swimming pool, and they filled the whole thing with mercury, and then they put this giant concrete pad like floating out in the middle of it, and on top of the pad they put this device so that they could rotate the device like nearly frictionlessly and have it perfectly leveled off, naturally leveled, and use that to get their measurements. So it was like a bunch of engineering went into building this. But if we read this first paragraph, let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit for you guys.
Yeah, well, what I'm getting at is where's the assumption of velocity?
Yeah, they have to. They're assuming because what they did, based on the geometry of the device, they did their math, and they said we need this many fringes. This many fringes will correspond to 30 kilometers a second of velocity.
Yeah, so that is the assumption. It's based on assumption of the velocity of light itself and the assumption that the reference frame is moving.
Right, correct. Yes, we agree.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the problem for both Aether. That's the problem with both Aether cosmology from a stationary standpoint and standard cosmology of Earth with the globe. Neither of them have a positive claim here.
Well, the Aether they strawmanned the Ether. See, this was in an age where when they wrote about it, yeah, they said that the Ether was basically
what is Ether? Don't tell me what
stationary.
They said. Tell me what Ether is before you tell me what they said. What is Ether?
Hold up, Neil. This conversation's been going on a while. Just let it roll, man.
Yeah, so they claim that there was this stationary luminiferous ether that filled the universe, and that the Earth was moving through it with a certain velocity, and so they expected to see the differential in the phase based on light moving through or against Earth's motion through the ether. So they were trying to track the relative motion between the Earth and the ether. That's why the title of the paper is On the Relative Motion of the Earth and the Luminiferous Ether, right? So they were trying to measure the relative motion between the two. Now, just that title, remember, relative motion, that means it can be the Earth moving or it can be the ether moving. There could be an ether wind.
Nothing moving? How about nothing moving?
Well, we know that there's a movement.
Because how do we know that? That's an assumption, like we discussed earlier.
No, we can measure it. We can measure a rotation. There's a 15 degree per hour rotation. We can measure it with ring laser gyros.
That is an assumption. What you have is a phase shift differential, and you have a bunch of people looking around in the environment for an explanation. And you have some people that say Earth must be moving, and other people say it could be the stars above moving. In either case, it's a choice, a philosophical choice. You could also say that it's a result of no movement, and this is just the way it is.
Well, if there was no movement, the stars wouldn't move.
Well, why would you link the stars to this? Why not the sun? Why couldn't this not be a velocity measurement of the solar movement as the absolute frame of reference? Why choose the stars?
Because when you track this across time, you can measure the ether wind across time, and when you plot it across time,
that's affirming the consequent.
Okay, when you track the phase shift across time, it matches sidereal time, not solar time.
How do you know that?
from the work that's been done on it. Dayton Miller, Mickelson, Gill Pearson.
That is the problem. They affirmed the consequent too.
No. Dayton Miller, when he plotted his stuff, he didn't even know that there was a pattern. Once he graphed it against sidereal time, a sinusoidal pattern emerged. That pattern's not present at solar time like it is at sidereal time.
Exactly. They grafted against sidereal time. They could have done the same with lunar time. They could have done the same with solar time. They could have chosen an asteroid as the frame of reference, for all I care. They don't even have a rotational vector in the math.
Yeah, you can measure the 15 degrees per hour.
This debunks the toroidal geometry of the claimed ether without a rotation vector.
What do you mean there's not there is a rotation? We can show it precesses 15 degrees per hour.
No, that you look at the stars and see those go 15 degrees per hour, and you assign that as what the phase shift differential must mean.
No, well, in the lab frame, if we just take the frame of the lab
before the horse, my friend.
Well, whatever, we have to have some frame. Our local inertial frame.
This could just be a stationary feature of how light functions. Just like a magnetic needle points in one direction doesn't mean there's something moving either.
Well, why does the phase shift precess 15 degrees per hour? Because that is the measurement.
That the phase shift itself is not 15 degrees per hour. That is an affirming the consequent. They saw the phase shift and said, this could be due to something moving. Let's look around in the environment for an explanation. And that's the problem.
A ring laser gyroscope, if you spin it up and you just sit it there and you don't touch it, it will precess one full rotation in 24 hours.
It doesn't move, though.
23 hours and 56 minutes. No, the device is not moving, but there's a preferred direction. Yeah, there's a preferred direction for the light inside. The light moves slightly faster east to west than it does west to east. And that
you could just say that the phase differential only appears in a certain orientation without any moving reference frame.
Yeah, but if everything's completely stationary and there's no movement whatsoever anywhere, then there wouldn't be a precession. The east to west and west to east rates would be equal.
Yep, that's affirming the consequent. Again, phase shift differential is observed. People look around in the environment for an explanation. There's no cause and effect relationship presented for ether cosmologists or for globe Earth heliocentrists. This is my position and many in the room, by the way.
So, do you know about? Ooh, this is the highlighted version. I'll have to.
I mean, I'll take a concession. I got to go, but thank you for your presentation.
Did you know that the generalized Sagnac effect the Sagnac effect has been generalized? It works with linear motion too. We can put a device on
a coordinate transformation process. It's purely mathematics and not physical.
No, it's not. It's a first order effect directly proportional to the velocity, not the square of the velocity.
The velocity that's assumed in the first place, which is not a measurement of velocity itself.
No. It's in the lab, bro. There's no assumption. We put the device on a conveyor belt and we translate it at a constant speed on a conveyor belt, and it shows up as a phase shift compared to when it wasn't on the conveyor belt.
Was it actually done on a conveyor belt? Did Wang actually produce a conveyor belt? Or did he work out the mathematics?
No, he did this at Naval Research Lab. He did this. He did it in two configurations. One was with the conveyor belt, and one was with the parallelogram, where he moved one arm of the parallelogram.
Right. You still have the problem of an at-rest state of a phase shift differential that's assumed to be the result of something moving.
So here's the difference. What he does is he says, okay, here's the device. We're going to spin it up. We're going to take the phase shift when it's just sitting still in the lab. Okay, we're going to take that as our 0 point, right? Because it doesn't matter what the number is, if it's 1,000,000 or if it's a 1. We want the difference. We want the delta. So we take whatever the number is when it's just sitting still on the table or on the conveyor belt, and then when we move it on the conveyor belt, we measure it and we get a different reading. We take the delta between the moving shift or the moving phase and the stationary phase, and we get this linear pattern. The faster that we move it on the conveyor belt, the more of a phase shift we get. And when you plug it into the formula, it perfectly predicts the velocity that we actually know it to be moving.
That's a post-diction again. You don't know it to be moving in the first instance. You have no
I know it to
reference
be
frame
moving
to
because
prove.
dude, with the lab is the reference frame, bro. I'm not talking about any astronomical reference frame. I'm not talking about space. I'm talking about in the
Right.
lab itself.
And I know, and at rest, you have a phase shift differential at rest as
So-
a control, right?
Yes, and then
The
we
assumption
compare.
is the assumption is that the phase shift is due to something having a particular velocity. That's not been proven.
We can verify that.
You cannot prove it's the stars versus the sun.
Okay, so I want to finish explaining what he did, and then you can tell me what you think
I'm
is
going to step back. Well, I really have to go now. So I'm sorry, but thank you very much. I mean, I'm doing this in the spirit of academic interest. Please don't take any of this personally, and thank you very much for coming in here.
Sure, bro. So we have the device. It's sitting on a conveyor belt, but the conveyor belt's not moving. We take a reading. We get a reading. Then we move it using the conveyor belt, and while it's moving, we take another reading. If we take the difference between reading 2 and reading 1, we'll call it delta. If we take the delta and we plug it in to the phase shift formula and rearrange the variables to solve for V, what we find is it produces the correct V that we know it to be moving in the lab because we know what speed we set the conveyor belt to. So, for example, if I make the conveyor belt move at 5 miles an hour and I take the delta between the 5 mile an hour device and the 0 mile an hour device and I plug it into the formula will also tell me V equals 5 miles an hour. So the result I get using the formula and the actual result I know to be happening in the lab are the same. That's the scientific method. This demonstrates that, we realize that the phase shift is proportional to the velocity.
No, that would be correlation.
No, this is not correlation. It doesn't matter what velocity I move it with. Any velocity I use, I can plug into this formula and predict what the phase shift is going to be, and then I can go and measure that phase shift, and I find it's the same as the one I predicted. So I can just make a prediction using this formula. I'll say, okay, if I move the conveyor belt at 10 miles an hour, I predict this will be my delta, and then I go measure the delta, and it is my delta.
Yeah, then you're gonna have to do the same with whatever else you apply it to. I mean, like if you're gonna do it with the stars, and you're gonna have to change the speed of the stars or whatever.
Well, what this proves is that we are definitely able to measure linear motion using interferometry. So their claims about Michelson-Morley, it being a null result because you can't measure it, is false. It's falsified. The fact that this works proves that the explanation for Michelson-Morley is a farce. That's the point. You're not supposed, under relativity, the way they teach physics, you're not supposed to be able to measure linear motion with light because in any inertial frame, the speed of light's supposed to be constant in all directions. And the relative motion between the source and the observer is not supposed to change the speed of light. It's still supposed to be constant. Even if you walk towards the light as it's coming towards you, you should still measure it happening in the same amount of time because they say your motion causes a length contraction through space.
Good morning to you.
But anyways, I hope you guys
sirs.
Hope you guys enjoyed the airy thing.
Yeah, that was good.
Good presentation. Very good. Good job.
Sporadic. I think you got your mic open, man.
Yep. Sorry, just in the office.
We believe in ether not because we just think it's cool, but when we pore over the experiments that have actually been done, we see a consistent effect happening in all light measurements and even electromagnetism. I don't know if you guys have heard
Shut
it.
this freaking clown up.
I don't know if you guys have heard of the Faraday unipolar induction paradox. So there's a paradox with Faraday's law of induction. Anybody who's taken physics E&M courses knows about Faraday's law of induction.
I've just got one quick question. What's ether?
Sure. So that's a good question.
Yeah, it was my question an hour ago.
The definition I would give for it is it is the primary substrate. So number one, it's the medium through which light propagation occurs, electromagnetic
so
wave
it's a
propagation.
Medium now, like water.
Yeah, it's a medium. Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's a medium.
It's a medium.
Yeah, it's what
Do
light
I need to
propagates
grab a
through.
dictionary definition of medium?
Demonstrate it. And don't give me the freaking Sagnac or Aries failure.
What type of demonstration would you accept?
A sample.
I know what electricity is.
Composition sample.
Right, so like you want me to give you like a cup of ether?
Yes, please. Yes.
You got to demonstrate it. It has to be real.
So it's like,
does it
bro,
exist
it's the same
in
thing.
what state? In what
it's
state
the same
is it?
thing
Is
as
it
like
liquid,
electrons,
gas,
bro.
Solid.
No, that's electron.
Plasma.
Hold on. You cannot show someone an electron. They're too small to see. Do you believe that electrons exist?
This is not questioning for us. This is you proving what ether is.
Okay, so the point I'm making is you can't demonstrate an electron by showing it to you under a microscope. You can only demonstrate it by showing.
No. We're asking for ether, not for electrons.
Okay. I'm making an explanation, and if you would let me finish, you would see how it relates.
You've got to demonstrate what ether is to the good panel. We don't want your explanation of electrons.
I mean, we bombard objects with electrons. Can you bombard objects with ether? And
how do you know what an electron is? I mean, you're bombarding it with something. I will grant you that. But what is your definition of an electron? That's the point.
Well,
you can't.
Please don't sidestep it.
At least they're getting a result of something. I mean,
and we can get results. So for example, right? We know you're using the logic. Hey, we can bombard stuff with something. There must be something there because we're bombarding it. And
don't sidestep a basic question. You could have just said.
So when I apply that same logic to ether, I can say there must be something there because effects happen, and I can demonstrate the effects.
Clown. We dealt with this with Witsit for a long time. What do you think? You're just going to roll in here and push out ether like it's a something?
Neil, knock it back about 8 levels, please. The young fellow's been quite polite. All I want to know is what is it?
So you politely let him piss down your back. No
Neil,
problem. I'll leave.
Neil, I didn't ask you to leave. I just asked you to dial it back a bit. That's all, mate.
So ether, if we are logically consistent, is a necessary deduction from the laws of logic, from the scientific observations that we make.
So you don't know.
If you read, it's the medium through which light propagates. If you read, for example, Maxwell.
If it's a medium, it'd be something you could put in a cup for us. Go and grab me a cup of ether, bring it back, show us, photograph it, and give it to T-Dub, and all's well.
If you just grab any cup in your kitchen right now, it has ether in it. I don't need to put it in there for you. It's already there.
Really? I thought it was full of air.
Well, ether is ever present everywhere.
Unless I fill it up with water or beer.
It's in there too. In fact, Fresnel drag we were talking about.
You don't know
earlier,
what ether is. You can't give us a definition, can you?
I said it's the primary substrate.
Just be honest.
Uh-oh.
It's the electromagnetic medium through which, or it's the medium through which electromagnetic propagation occurs. That's the definition. That's like asking me to tell me what water is. It's a fluid, right? It's wet.
And what's that got to do with your claim of ether?
Well, if you're asking me what something is, I can only tell you what it is by describing its properties.
In what state
does it exist?
Medium. As a gas, a liquid.
I can help you out, JC, before you drown in this, if you want.
It is a medium. You can treat it as a perfect fluid.
Perfect fluid. So
one that does not impart friction. A frictionless
liquid.
I would say that you're trying to apply a state of matter to it.
Yeah.
Which is incorrect.
What else is a medium?
Okay, so I would say that matter is made of ether, not the other way around.
Matter is made of ether.
And do you think it's made by free magnetism? By magnetism?
I think the reason that magnetism and electricity exist is they are modes of the ether. So
you
magnetic.
Sorry, tell me.
Yeah, so magnetic and electric fields exist within the ether, and that's why I was bringing up the Faraday induction paradox. Is we can look and we can realize that there must be an absolute frame for magnetism and electricity too.
Yep, I agree with that. Definitely. But
Faraday's law.
Hang on. So what you're saying is that ether is chemical bonds. Is that what you're saying?
No. Everything that you've ever touched, tasted, smelt, felt, anything that is physically, materially real in this world subsists of ether.
Okay, so the problem that you've got here, and all these guys are just going to continually drown you in this, is that once you try and sustain the fact that ether is a matter that exists, they're going to ask you to prove it by showing you a cup of it, or if it's in your hand. I'm just going to help you out here and just go a little bit higher level and say there is the reason why matter and energy exists, and there's someone that introduced energy and matter. So just think about that for a sec.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in God.
So for the natural to exist, there has to be some kind of supernatural, yeah?
Sure.
Right, there you go. So go off and have a think about it. If you keep coming back with this rubbish to these guys here, they're just going to ask you to prove what ether is, and you can't do it. But thinking about that, you can compromise with them, because everyone here believes that matter and energy exists, and everyone else believes that there has to be something supernatural to create it.
Yeah, right. Like you're saying the logical standard is they wouldn't. Matter and energy exists. It has a supernatural origin, but you can't directly prove the supernatural origin. Show me God. They don't say that, so why would they say it for ether? I get it. That's why I brought up electrons, because we can't actually show people electrons either. All we can do is measure like what they do. We can describe properties that they have, but we can't say what they are ontologically because we can't see them.
No,
seems like a fair comparison.
No, it's not, because you can direct electrons at something. Can you direct ether at something?
So you're saying the ability to manipulate it?
Wait, that's what I'm saying. Right. Well, he's still proving his point. It's like, sure, you can still move it, but can you see it move?
So we know, yeah, we can manipulate it.
If you can't observe it, is it truly happening?
Yeah, we can manipulate it. So if you look at the work of what's the guy's Galiev, he's a Ukrainian researcher. What he did is he took he basically set up like the equivalent of an interferometer with tubes. One of them just being a regular open air section, and the other one being a tube that was made with shielded metal. And he, on the shielded metal side, he was able to like turn the device or turn the tube so that the orientation of it would be, north-south versus east-west. And he found that when he moved the tube, that that there was a laminar or turbulent flow that would happen of the light in there. So like when turned it north-south, since the light is flowing, like since the ether wind is said to blow east to west, right? Or Earth is said to rotate east to west. However you envision it, there's this east to west motion. The stars are moving east to west. Whatever, there's an east to west motion. When he orients it perpendicular to that east to west motion or against it, the conductors are known to resist the flow of ether, and so that's what creates the turbulence within the chamber. And he's actually able to measure that turbulence. And when he turns it the other way, the flow is laminar because there's no resistance because it's flowing open through the tube.
Therefore, ether.
Well, something's creating turbulence inside of a tube.
The joke. All a trick. Right from the get-go. from your opening statement, Politrick. It's not an experiment.
Oh, right. I'm sorry you feel that way. I mean, we also know that space has definite properties, right? A vacuum has, free space.
Outer
a vacuum.
space?
No, free space, like the space that resides everywhere around us that we sit in right now.
I thought that was the ether.
All right, so space is imbued with definite properties. If I take a vacuum chamber and I suck all the matter out of it, or 99.9999999% of it, as close to zero as I can get, we find that there are constant properties that emerge from that vacuum, such as impedance. There's something called free
energy.
space.
And you can't suck energy out of a vacuum.
Well, so there's 0-point energy as well, but there's something called free space impedance.
No, not 0 point. I said you can't suck energy out of a vacuum.
Well, there are energy fluctuations within a vacuum that is supposed to be zero, but it fluctuates.
Yeah. So in all these tests that you've articulated in the last 40 minutes, what we're looking at is packets of energy that have been disturbed by something or other. That something or other we don't know. So what we do is assign a name to it, and we run off with ether.
That's the same thing that happens with electrons, bro. That was my point.
Right, so ether's energy? So it's ether energy, is it?
Well, ether is the medium through which energy travels. So this concept,
so it's
right?
Not energy, it's not matter. Matter's made of ether.
Right. So
now energy goes through it.
Let me put it like this.
It must exist for light to travel. What happens if it doesn't exist? What does light? Does light just stand still?
Well, light is a wave. We know that it's a wave. We can verifiably measure it to be a wave. A wave requires a medium. Anybody in the world can get out and anybody in the world can get an oscilloscope and verify that light is a wave.
Okay, so have you removed ether and then tried to shine light through it without ether there? Through something?
It's not possible to remove ether from the environment.
Oh my God, there it is. There it is.
It's too superfluous. Even if you shield something in a Faraday cage, there's still ether in it. The ether is much smaller.
Sounds like an excuse.
Yeah, the substrate.
Wait, I thought you sucked everything out of an area. 99.999%.
A vacuum just uses air pressure to suck matter out. Just because the air's gone doesn't mean the ether's gone.
You can't get the ether out. You can't suck the ether out, right?
No.
Sounds like the Holy Spirit to me.
Exactly. Hold on. That's exactly my point.
Why would you assume that you could?
Lock it in with the Holy Spirit and make it divine.
Sounds like the Holy Spirit to me. Exactly, Neil.
Why would you assume that you could?
We need the Ghostbusters. They can catch
We heard this all from Whitson.
So if I take, let me. So you're roboting really hard, right? So it's like this. If you take a colander and you pour water in it, those little holes at the bottom, the water will pour through, right? And you can keep pouring the water.
Why is it every time you make an analogy, you try to compare ether to a medium of note?
That's what it is.
Like liquid. Well, it's not, because you can't produce the fucking thing, mate.
You can use fluid dynamics to model it.
You're yet to produce it.
Produce what? It's everywhere.
Ether. If it's everywhere, get your vacuum chamber, suck the fuck out of everything else and go, there you go, caught some.
I just told you there's where does the impedance come from in a vacuum? There's a constant impedance of 377 ohms in every vacuum everywhere, and it's always the same.
I don't know, it's your claim.
That's
your story, bro.
Okay, so let's talk about this.
You guys are aware of what an ohm is, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's the thing Buddhists say when they're meditating.
Oh.
So
No,
impedance
measurable resistance.
If you just the word impedance itself, the reason it's called impedance is because it's a material property caused by the flow of electromagnetic current or of magnetism, whether it's electric or magnetic. The electromagnetic energy is being impeded.
Wait.
Hang on.
That's the thing that's supposed to be flowing through the medium.
Yeah, the electromagnetic energy, correct.
Can I just correct him on impedance, please? That's okay.
Well, impedance is an AC and resistance is DC, but...
No. Okay, so impedance is a combination of both inductance, capacitance, and resistance in a particular formula. Yeah. So just be careful what you say. Just don't go ramble on when you have people in here that know. Yeah, so just don't ramble on about shit in here when people are here that know what they're talking about. And if you look at the chat, I just posted something from my holiday venue that proves ether. It's a picture I just posted in here when people are here that know what they're talking about. And if you look at the chat, I just posted something from my holiday venue that proves ether. It's a picture I just posted.
Okay, but once again, I'm not talking about like how you calculate impedance in an RLC circuit. I'm talking about what is the, like, in a physics standpoint, what causes impedance, right? It's a material property. Every material, if it's not an let's say we don't have an RLC circuit. Let's just say that I am conducting current through a wire. The wire has an impedance value. And if I change that wire to a different type of metal, now it has a different impedance value. So every material has its own impedance value.
Stop. So that wire only has an impedance value if one particular current is passed through it.
Sure. But impedance, right? Impedance is the square root of the electric permittivity over the magnetic permeability. And every material has an electric permittivity value, and it has a magnetic permeability value. So you can derive impedance only. You can derive impedance for an object only using the electric permittivity and the magnetic permeability. You don't need to,
which is ether. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's
this
how
is
it
all
works,
heavy
bro.
side. This is all Oliver heavy side. This is Jabba the Hutt, and this is Witsit. We've heard it all before. You can't produce ether. Step off.
So if there is,
come on, guys, we should encourage him. He's talking about current events.
Yeah, if there is electric permittivity that means there must be something substantive there to create it. Because emptiness, a lack of anything, would not create permittivity. It would not create
can't have
permeability.
nothing, right?
So therefore, when we take a vacuum chamber and we conduct an electrical current through that chamber, there should be no resistance to that flow. There should be no permittivity. There should be no permeability. There should be no loss. Yet there is, and it's at a constant rate in every vacuum everywhere.
Therefore, ether.
Yeah, free space. Free space has its own impedance value. Free space has its own impedance value, just like any other material. Every material has its own impedance value, so does free space, and it's a constant. So why does that emerge as a constant? What's the property of space itself that allows for there to be a constant impedance value? What is there inside of a vacuum?
Claim. Why are you asking us questions?
That's the point. There must be something inside the vacuum to create impedance, and that is the ether.
Why can't it be?
Wait a sec.
Material has its own impedance value, so does free space, and it's a constant. So why does that emerge as a constant? What's the property of space itself that allows for there to be a constant impedance value? What is there inside of a vacuum?
Claim. Why are you asking us questions?
That's the point. There must be something inside the vacuum to create impedance, and that is the ether.
Why can't it be the beether?
Wait a sec. So you did it without. So you did it without the ether, and then with the ether.
Crustacean. Wait, hey, Jesus Christ! Would the Casimir effect help your argument here?
The Casimir effect works too. That's a different thing. I mean, there has to be something, but
oh my God, help him out.
I don't want to jump off of this. I don't want to jump off of this though, because if there was truly nothing in the vacuum, if it was truly empty, there would not be a constant impedance
You
value.
don't want to jump off this because we all know, and every single person sitting there saying it's going round and round in circles, we all know you can't prove or produce what is ether.
But it's whatever's
If
impeding
I can't see it, it
the
doesn't
energy.
exist.
When you say what it is,
If I can't see it, it
I'm
doesn't
describing
exist.
it to you. I'm describing to you what it does.
It's like
right?
gravity.
I'm describing it. I'm giving you material properties of it, right? I'm giving you
like
its
gravity.
impedance value.
Right?
I mean, what do you want? Right?
It's like
what
gravity.
Do you do? It's the same thing you do for electrons. When I say, tell me what
Same
an
thing you do
electron
for
is,
gravity,
show me an electron, right? You can't show it to me, but you can tell me.
And this has got lots to do with anything. Stop trying to sidestep. Produce the ether.
I'm holding
please.
you to a consistent.
No. You're not holding anything. You're holding your dick. That's about all.
Dude, it's
Cut
not
with
a
this shit.
sidestep. He's comparing it to something you believe in.
Yeah, you can shut up too. You
correct. You're
bastard.
you're being logically inconsistent.
No, you're being a weasel. We asked you a simple question. Please produce your ether.
Do you believe in electrons? Yes or no?
What does that have to do with ether?
Question proofs have fuck all to do with you producing the evidence. Put it forward.
Because if you believe in electrons,
put it forward. Stop talking shit.
Standard and apply it to electrons.
No, you're not getting a standard. Stop talking your crap. Put your evidence forward.
Yeah, so
Let's
if all you have is personal
more whack.
attacks,
Come on.
Yeah, it demonstrates the weakness of your position.
It doesn't demonstrate anything. That's what the problem is. You're not demonstrating. That's the bit you're lacking, son. Put it forward.
I have a whole list of experiments that demonstrate it, and all you can say is it doesn't demonstrate.
Yeah, all of your experiments, none of them actually proved motion in the fucking first place. So you're all going there, we did it. And most of them are just observations anyways.
With interferometry, bro. Ruyong Wong has done it multiple times in the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory. It's documented. What do you mean you can't measure it? It's been done.
So you've got an interferometer, and what's it proven?
It's proving that if you move that interferometer through space, you can.
So if you move the device, you've proven the device moves. Congratulations.
No, if you move the device, you can prove that the device can measure its own motion through space.
So, let me get this straight. If I drive my car forward and the tachometer says I'm moving forward, it's also an interferometer. That's basically what's happening. You've got a device that proves it's moving when you move it. Oh my goodness. Awesome. You've picked it up, you've moved it, and it says it's moving.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
So
if you don't move it, does it pick up motion?
Yeah, so your lack of understanding is not an argument.
Does it pick up motion if it's not moved?
No.
Excellent. So you've got no proof of motion. Congratulations. Thank you. Now, what is ether?
It does pick up a reading when it moves, however, that matches the known velocity.
Yeah, that's great. If it's getting moved, it should pick up that it's been moved. Awesome. Now, what is ether?
Why
what is ether? Don't sidestep. What is ether?
It's the medium that the light wave.
It's a medium. Excellent. So if it's a medium, you should be able to pick it up and get a cupful. Go and get some. Take a photo of it and put it in the side
We already did this.
Yeah, you've already sidestepped it. You're a weasel.
Cup full of electrons? Can you give me a cup full of electrons?
You're not producing evidence, mate.
Why are you using electrons? Just prove your ether.
Because that's their thing, Neil. It's every time someone questions these etherites
I
about
am using
getting
the same standard.
You're not using anything. You're being a slime. As I was saying, Neil, every time one of these little etherite shit stains comes along and says ether, 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 and someone says produce it because he's claimed it's a medium. So a medium like water, like air, we should be able to test for it, use it, modify it, manipulate it. We cannot do that. So he has to now scientifically prove this shit exists. But, as I was saying, every time they come along, their first response is, oh, can you prove electrons? Get me a cup full of electrons. I'd like a fistful of electrons. If we haven't heard it before, mate. Now, try again, JC. Start producing what you're claiming.
If your question's valid to me, it's valid direct back to you, too.
All of your questions, see? Sidestep. Again. I don't think I need to answer that, so I'm just going to go, if what's thrown to me sticks on you, just like glue. Come on, grow up.
So the point that you're
sounds
missing...
like gravity to me.
Yeah, I think.
Jesus, are you sure you've got the right definition? Are you sure you've got the right definition? Because I always thought that ether is what you get trapped in when your wife can't decide between two alternatives.
LOL. I think that you're missing the point. That the reason
you're missing the point. Stop. You've claimed medium,
finish, bro. Bro,
no, you claimed a medium. You produce it.
A conversation.
Ether is a medium. Was your words, not mine. Yours. You claimed it was a medium. Now produce it.
And they let you talk unimpeded for a long time as my blood was boiling.
Yeah. So if I ask you, the reason I'm bringing up electrons, let me try to finish this sentence. Is because
we don't give a shit about the electrons. It's a sidestep.
Okay,
we know what it's for.
It's not a
produce
sidestep.
the medium you claimed. That's it.
If I ask you to produce electrons, the way that you do that,
don't give a shit. Produce the medium you claimed.
It's by sending them through the ether.
Okay, I'm trying to show you that the way that I produce ether for you is the same way that you produce electrons for me. That's the point.
That's a joke. Same thing with it. Constantly done.
Okay.
They can't prove it. You show me electrons. Show me atoms.
Is that a concession? Is that a concession that you can't prove the ether?
I'm saying it's too small to see because what you want is to
wrong. It's a concession that he can't prove it.
No, you're saying show me.
T-Dub nailed you.
No, you haven't, brother. Optics.
No, I didn't say I did. I said T-Dub did.
Okay. When you say show me, that word show, you mean like visibly, right?
Okay, Jesus, listen carefully. Your claim was ether is a medium. If that's the case, you should be able to produce it for us. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm asking you to define what you mean when you say produce or show.
So that's the level of fucking slime you are now.
No, it's not obvious because
in some capacity,
we can measure it. That's my point. I'm demonstrating measurements, and you're saying that's not good enough.
What unit, like kilojoules, or kilograms?
Well, I gave you an example of impedance. Impedance is one example. I also gave you the example of phase shifts.
Impedance is impedance the way we measure energy and matter.
Impedance is the resistance to the flow of electromagnetic energy. So you can.
I don't want a measurement of the impedance of something that you can measure. I want a measurement of the ether.
Yeah, he also said that matter.
What does that mean? A measurement of the ether? Like, tell me, what do you mean a measurement of the ether? Give me what that looks like. What do you mean by that?
How many watts, or how many kilograms, calories.
Yeah, because we could do that with water. We could do that with even air.
Water is matter. Water is brute matter.
Oh, so you're saying that ether, and matter is made up of ether? Because I heard you say that.
Yeah, so you can't show me a measurement of any of those things for electrons either. That's the point. So if we use the same standard of proof, that's why I'm asking you, define what you mean by show.
Right. So you're saying you can't prove it?
No, I'm saying I can, but it's going to be using a standard of proof.
So you can prove
that
electrons?
is for something on a small scale, such as an electron.
So you can prove electrons exist?
You can prove electrons exist.
Okay.
So now prove ether exists.
Okay, by using the same standard of proof for electrons, I can adequately prove ether exists.
So they're just electrons then?
They're not electrons. They're something different.
Well, how do you separate the two?
Well, because their properties are different.
You're doing the same test, the same thing that you just said, the same way of testing them.
Oh, properties. Properties.
Yeah, I said the same standard of proof.
Properties should be physical. I should be able to see properties.
Yeah. When you say see, do you mean with your eyes or do you mean measure with some type of device?
I don't know. Let me see. When I usually say see, I mean I want to see it.
Well, you can't see electrons. You can't see any of their properties because they're completely invisible.
I'm not talking about electrons. Why do you keep talking about electrons?
Because if you can't see electrons and you believe in them, how can you say you can't see ether and it doesn't count?
See, that's his logic, Neil. Because you can't see something, he doesn't have to define what he's talking about.
Oh my gosh, this is absolutely
No, that's exactly your logic. That's what you just told him. Because he can't do something, you don't have to do something.
Do you agree that
that's
there are
exactly
things that
what
exist that we
you
can't
just
see?
said.
Hey,
that is what you just said. Because Neil can't do something, you cannot. Or you don't have to.
That's not what I said.
Fucking oath it is.
You incorrectly inferred that, and that was not my intended meaning.
Well, if it's not your intended meaning, don't fucking say it.
Are there things that exist that cannot be seen? Yes or no?
You in a fucking minute if you keep going. Anyways,
So you can't answer that question? That's a basic question.
What's ether? Let's get back to it. Stop sidestepping. What's ether?
I already told you.
Yep, and you fucking sidestep that.
No, it's the medium through which electromagnetic waves propagate.
So produce it then. It should be something
that's air.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say produce it? Can you define that for me?
So now I've got to actually define. If I've got to define something, fuck you.
What's entire wrong? Purpose. Don't
you like having to define things? Define, please. I don't want to mess it up.
The entire purpose of invoking electrons is to hold you to a consistent standard.
But we're not.
So this is a burden of proof reversal.
That's burden of proof reversal.
You're making a claim, and you're trying to back your claim by trying to refute something else. That's logical.
It's not by refuting something. I'm not refuting electrons. I'm stating that you are asking me to demonstrate something for you. And I'm saying, okay, I have demonstrated it. And you say, that's not good enough. And I say,
you haven't demonstrated anything. That's the bit you're missing. You've got this conception that you've demonstrated something. We're still waiting for it. All you've given us is, I infer this from such and such an observation. I've inferred that from such and such an observation. Stop.
Inferred.
So it doesn't exist then. It's just imagination. You've got no proof of it actually, nothing physical, nothing tangible.
Well, then, if I don't have proof of ether, you don't have proof of electrons. That's the point.
Hey, stop! I didn't claim electrons. Thank you for the straw man.
Yeah, this ain't no electron.
Actually, I asked you if electrons are real.
And I didn't answer. Because I don't give a fuck about that. That's nothing I claim. I claim the earth is flat.
Yeah, it's measured that way.
So you're saying that, like, you want to say that the reason that there's this impedance or loss of energy through a vacuum, right? That's the result of there being ether present, right?
Yes, it's being absorbed by the medium, just like it would be absorbed by any material.
Prove it.
Okay. What would you accept as proof? Because if I use a measurement, hold on, I'm trying to finish. If I use a measurement and I say, "Hey,
stop,"
I can measure the impedance.
Put forward your proof.
Okay, there is impedance in a vacuum. Therefore, there must be a substance creating the impedance, and I am positing what that substance is. I'm labeling that as ether. The substance that's doing it, I'm telling you, that's what ether is. It's the substance that creates impedance in a vacuum.
Scientifically prove it.
By measuring the impedance in a vacuum, I prove it.
How do I do that?
That's circular reasoning.
And around we go.
How do I do that so I can go set this up?
Holy shit.
I've been playing too long, dude.
First, prove you have a vacuum. You can't. Right? Because you can't remove all of the matter or energy out of a confined space, can you? But for all you know, it's a single atom that's been expanded, and that's what's giving you the permittivity, dude. I mean, it's amateur hour around here.
Right. True. That is true, bro. Yeah. Well, he did concede 99.9999999% of all the matter.
So you don't have a vacuum. So you can't remove the variable that you would need to in order to have nothing in there to then say there's something in there which isn't the other nothings. I mean, good grief.
And where's the
But
vacuum in nature? That's what I asked.
But 0.0000001% of matter isn't enough to do that.
Also remove the interaction between the walls of the container and the space. Can't do that either.
Uh-oh.
So you don't have a space void of other interactions to then say there's nothing in there for me to have this permittivity, which then means I have to postulate something's in there. Good grief, bro. Nice try, though. You're lucky I was asleep this whole time, sucker.
I tried to wake you up, AI. I sent you a few messages.
Fuck,
yeah, but you should have rubbed my shoulder. You should have rubbed my shoulders.
Yeah, why don't you just turn him over, Neil?
Because I'm saying, why is AI not piping up here? This is insanity. He's dealt with this with Witsit. He's letting this freaking guy come in here and spew all this nonsense. I'm glad to hear that you were sleeping.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah, but for those who don't know, if you have a vacuum chamber, first, you can't have a true vacuum in there. You have a near vacuum or an extreme vacuum, that's about it. Second, you can't separate the walls of the container from the space. So the interactions between the energies within the molecules and structure of the container, plus whatever material is left inside the container, can't be excluded from this idea that I have permittivity, therefore ether. Doesn't follow. You don't have the conditions in the first instance to carry the conclusion, which is an actual vacuum. You don't possess that to deal with. Sorry.
Yeah, but what about electrons?
Adam.
You can't see them. You can't see atoms either.
How did you guys split the first atom then?
No, atoms are made of ether.
Young Einstein did that. That's how we put the bubbles in beer.
Yeah, see, AI, you know what they're doing. They're trying to liken it to the Holy Spirit. That's the end result of what they're trying to do.
Someone called the Ghostbusters.
I said ghosts hold you down to the ground. I already gave you the reason why it worked.
Ghosts?
Yes, ghosts hold you down to the ground. This is the reason why it works. I'll go through this, record this. So, the very first person ever was born, just popped wherever. They flew into the air, and then they died because there was no air, so it turned into a ghost. The next person was born. He didn't want that to happen, so he held that people down. And they aged and died. Now there's two ghosts, and then one more person is born. So now there's two ghosts available to hold the one person, so there's always an extra ghost to always hold people to the ground. That's how it works.
I like it. Goddamn.
Oh, I get you now. Brother. And before people evolved, when the rocks were their cousins, the rocks were held to the ground by the ghosts of the other rocks.
Exactly.
Michelle Dowler would be proud.
Yep, so debunk me. So if you can't debunk me, my reasoning is correct.
Now, just out of curiosity, was Aries' failure a legit experiment?
What was the observed natural phenomena?
Speed of light.
No, I give props to the guy's presentation. It was a good presentation. I enjoyed that Aries failure bit. Yeah. Well, I called it Aries success.
Yeah, that bit was cool.
What does Aries' failure have to do with ether?
That's what he started out with.
I don't know. Propagation of starlight. I don't know.
No, Aries' failure.
He said the sky moves, not the earth.
I don't know that it was related to that, but anyway.
Okay, but Aries' failure has true mediums, doesn't it? Doesn't it have a tube filled with water?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it water like you could drink it, you can pee it out, you can squirt people with it out of a gun?
Yes.
Therefore, ether.
Yeah, you can shoot rioters with a hose with water. Yep.
Well, I thought the whole point of that presentation was that, therefore, Earth not moving, right? But I don't know. We got onto ether somehow. I don't know.
It's always going to go to ether. That's the end result that they want. They want to take you to ether. So everything sounds great And then here comes the aluminiferous ether.
Well, he told us it was a medium, and I'm here, and I thought, you know what? I'll ask my friend DeepSeek. He knows heaps of stuff. Physical environmental medium, a material substance that allows waves, particles, or energy to travel through it. Examples: air for sound waves, water for light, and how about this? Vacuum, a medium for electromagnetic waves like light, though it lacks matter. So there you go.
Well, don't let Quantum Eraser hear you say that.
Hey, he can take it up with DeepSeek.
Well, he did also say that light was a wave.
Yeah, when he said that, I'm sitting there going, oh shit, it's QE, this will be good.
Electromagnetic waves, get it right. Which DeepSeek just reconfirmed.
Yeah.
So where did he go? He ran away or you skipped him?
I didn't touch him.
No, he ran himself away.
Completing his task. His burden for his proposition is that he needs a vacuum chamber, right? That has an actual vacuum in it. So he's going to go find one, and then he's going to bring it back and prove us wrong.
Good luck with that.